in my belly.
Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Kansas City jazz bassist Jeff Harsbarger. We caught up with him during the COVID-19 quarantine of April 2020, and he's finally back at his home in Kansas City after a journey that included Paris and some stark realities of our new world. He talked about how he's dealing with this time now in this void of live jazz, along with the hopeful future and so much more. Enjoy. Okay, I think we're good to go. Jeff, hey man, thanks for taking a minute out. I appreciate it.
I have lots of them right now. It's no problem at all.
Oh my God. What a crazy time. So, the one thing I did want to do is, what I've been doing is really reaching out to the jazz community from, not only in Kansas City, but around the world. And I think it's really therapeutic. I think it's cathartic to talk about something other than what the news is putting out there. And just the reality of the fact that, this is quite an unprecedented time to have no music and no real timetable as to when it's going to come back.
Yeah.
Plus, I think, too, you're one of the very few people on the planet that was actually at that, now that I think back on it, what a unbelievable show that Bill Frisell put on, and the fact that they sang "We Shall Overcome" and we all stood up in unison, like we all cerebrally knew that something in the world was going to happen very soon.
Yeah, it was a really, truly beautiful moment in music and culture and just that family of humans, being gathered for artistic reasons. And it kind of, it's amazing to be in a room full of people that just all are feeling that kind of love at the same time. It's a really beautiful moment.
Well, and I think the thing about it that was so unique whenever I'm really thinking about everything, from around the 12th and 13th that kind of got shut down, that was the last live show that I went to, and what a spectacular show, and just the fact that that happened before Space Oddity, as if, that was kind of the triumphant call to arms,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Wow, but, before we get into kind of what's going on with this new COVID-19 world we're in, when we talked during that show on March 3rd, you were getting ready to go to Paris and you had to scramble to get home. So that's probably an interesting tale to tell. Do you mind talking about that a little bit?
No, not at all. It is interesting. I went to Paris the day after that show. And I had contacted my friends like 2 days before that were already there and saying, hey, how are things? American media is very frantic and shrill about everything all the time. So I kind of wanted your perspective, and I called people that have been living there for a while and people that were just visiting, and they were all like, it's fine. It's fine. Yes, it's bad in Italy, but this is France, and our healthcare system's amazing, and everyone's on top of it. And things aren't bad. You should totally come. So I went, and the first 3 or 4 days were lovely, and then things started crashing quickly. I think 3 days were good, and then about every 12 hours something changed and something constricted and borders closed and trains stopped, and it was a very different experience. I decided to come back. I kind of had a few markers in my head when I left. I told myself, if certain things happen, it's time to go. And I watched, I would talk to the people that were running the place I was staying in and said, hey, I heard this is going to happen. And they're like, it's not going to happen. And then it would happen. I heard, they're going to close all the cafes. And then she was like, no, they can't close all the cafes. This is Paris. They're never going to do that. The next day, they closed everything. So I wasn't, this person was, I think, scared that I was going to leave and not pay the rent. They had very economical issues to make me feel like this is a great place to be. But, in times of the plague, if you can, you should leave the city. That's the age-old solution. So I think it was on Monday. I'd already. There was a day that the death toll in Italy hit 500 that day, and then the border between France and Germany closed, and then Trudeau announced that all Canadian citizens should go home if possible. Couldn't. Our administration probably wasn't going to make any kind of proclamation like that anytime soon for the welfare of its citizens. I decided that was good enough reason. You know, if a major leader on my side of the pond says, get over the pond, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So I changed my flight to the next day, and at 2 in the morning, I got a text from United saying, we're so sorry that your flight's been canceled.
Wow.
Please get a hold of here. You go through the phone tree, and it just says, we're sorry, we're getting more calls than normal. Call back later. And it was like that for hours. And so then I have a friend, thankfully, that works for United, and I contacted them, and they rescheduled me the next day. But that plane was canceled. So United completely abandoned Paris. They were just like, we're not flying out of Paris. We're gone.
Wow.
So there was a chance American Airlines were still there, and my friends Johnny and Kara were also there. They were on their honeymoon. Johnny was studying with Francois and making his record. So I went and guested on his record at the studio while those were still open, and then their lodging ran out, so I had them come over and stay with me. The night. All of our tickets have been canceled. We all got new flights the next day, but we weren't trusting it. And then Macron came on the TV that night and said, as of tomorrow noon, Paris is completely locked down. Wherever you are at that moment is where you'll be for at least 2 weeks. Take care of your business. So Johnny's wife, Kara, had found these tickets on American Airlines for the next morning. It was the last flight out of Paris before the lockdown happened.
Wow.
So we bought really expensive tickets to get home and ordered a Uber van. And meanwhile, United had said, oh, yeah, tomorrow you're canceled too. We'll have you on a flight in 4 days on Saturday. Which is just completely inappropriate, under normal circumstances, much less these extraordinary ones.
Wow.
The idea of being stranded in a pandemic hot zone didn't really sound great. So we had an Uber van set up to pick us up at 5 in the morning. It bailed. It didn't show up.
Wow.
The metro was closed, and the buses were all down to 25% capacity. So we had to walk 40 minutes across town to a RER train station. Literally got the last train out of central Paris with the sign said 4 minutes. Once we hit the station, we're like, hey. And Johnny's got his giant upright bass in a case. We're trundling this thing across pre-dawn Paris.
Wow.
We made it. We made it to the airport. The lines were long. Everyone was trying to get the fuck out of town. Clearly a lot of very sick people around. But the terminals were operating at a quarter capacity. They had shut a lot of the gates. So you could actually, once you were through security and everything, you could easily get way away, and you walk 10 minutes down through the terminal. You could find a spot where you felt like you were doing proper social distancing. And the city had been out of toilet paper and gel since I got there. So I had bought a bottle of pure rubbing alcohol, and I was just burning off whatever was on my hands like every 15 minutes when I was out and about in public. I probably stank like hell, but I don't care.
Yeah.
I didn't end up in the hospital. So
yeah.
That was the story getting home. The flight got us to Dallas, and we had to find another way to Kansas City. And we were, did the longest layover possible, figuring we'd have to sit in line forever, to get through customs. But all that was over by then. We were through the gate in 10 minutes. Dallas airport was a ghost town. I've never seen it that small, that quiet.
Wow.
And the screening, getting back in, everyone complained about this enhanced screening. It was lackluster at best, let me just say. Someone asked, have you been to some place where there's an outbreak? I was like, yes. It's like, do you have any symptoms? Okay, take this paper, please self-isolate in your home for 14 days and take down your temperature twice a day. And if it ever spikes above this, then please call your doctor. Of the three of us, only one of them had their temperature taken.
Wow.
So I'm thankful I got in, and I was not symptomatic. I didn't feel bad about trying to come home because I didn't think I was going to bring anything to anyone. I didn't really have a lot of faith in this new quote-unquote enhanced health screening. I wish they would have been taking everyone's temperature. I wish, they would have been testing everyone, and watching different countries as I was in Europe, like how different countries handled it. You can tell who's got better rates than who, because all the way across the board, the countries that have the lowest amount of deaths right now in Europe are the ones that test every single human that comes across a border, no matter how they come across.
Wow.
And they're doing social distancing, and they're doing testing, and they're doing the vector tracing, which is, without a vaccine or proper antiviral drugs to help tackle this thing, are the things we can do. That's Switzerland, Germany. They test every single person, and they're the ones that are actually having a better handle on this at the moment than a lot of others. I'm seeing other countries, friends of mine that I've spoken with in the Netherlands and in Sweden specifically, they're like, oh, it's getting bad. Like, they haven't done any government-mandated social distancing or self-quarantining. So the parks are open and the bars are open, and people just aren't self-policing because humans are humans, and some people just can't, so I guess.
Wow.
So their numbers are going up pretty bad.
Wow.
But yeah, I did my quarantine at home with Johnny and Kara since we traveled together. We figured their home was the safe spot to do it all. I had a couple very good friends drop off supplies for us. Did the food run, and I did it with them because coming back to my housemate, it wouldn't have been fair to him. He would have had to quarantine with me. I didn't want to trap him. Turns out he ended up getting COVID.
Wow.
And he's fine. He's better. He's gotten over it. But you got to do 10 days self-isolation, post your final symptoms. And sometimes those symptoms hang around. And he never had a fever high enough to be able to go get a test. The doctors just said, well, you don't have a fever, so don't come in. Just get over it. So it was the absolute worst feeling he's ever had in his life. It was really bad, but he got over it. But that put my stay an extra 2 weeks. So, all told, I was away from the house about 6 weeks, living out of my suitcase and my laptop. And it's nice to get back to my base.
Yeah. Wow.
I came home 4 days ago, and I'm glad Chad, my housemate, is healthy, and I'm back to my instrument, which feels good, and I'm spending a lot of time on the laptop, filling out all the grants, filling out all the forms, trying to apply for all the things, hoping we get refunded on the PPP and all that stuff, so that small businesses like myself and all the artists I know have a fair shake at it.
Wow. Yeah, it's heavy, man. Yeah, I'm glad that you got back and you're back in it, and this whole thing has been such a. I mean, we're looking at like day 40-ish right now, and it just seems unimaginable. But I think the thing, and it's taken on all these different incarnations as we've gone along. And I think the main thing right now, the irony of all of this is that the one thing that's going to save us is art, visual, music, TV, film. But you all are having the hardest time making money or securing loans or any of these things. Isn't that the greatest irony of all of this, is that it's so minimalized? Like, God forbid a big corporation doesn't, survive, but all of you that are making things that are actually keeping the planet in good spirits, you all are scrambling for your lives now.
Yeah. It's an interesting, like you said, it's an interesting time. I take heart in that this is the best time in human history for something like this to have happened. If we didn't have the internet, I cannot imagine what life would be like. Well, we'd have to roll back to previous pandemics. We'd have to look at what happened in 1918. We'd have to look at what happened in this country with polio. And the connectivity that we have with one another now, with this advanced telephony, that's just fantastic.
Yeah.
So I've been able to make work with people. The Marcus Lewis Virtual Big Band has put 2 videos out now. Students that I teach from Kansas University, I still have my teaching schedule, so I can still talk with them, Zoom and Skype and FaceTime, whatever they use. The technology is lousy for the bass. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Man, the compression is just the latency. You can't play with another human at the same time. It's a drag. You've got to build things kind of like you do in the studio, 1% at a time. So I miss playing with humans. I did a couple of small online things with Johnny because we were quarantined together. It was great. I'm doing another one this weekend with my friends Victor and Penny. We're going to do they have a giant back deck. So it's totally socially distance appropriate. I never go through their house. I walk up their back deck and I set up right at the edge of the stairs, and I'm never closer than 12 feet to another human. And we're just going to play for their neighbors. And much, like you, I agree with you. Like you said, in times of distress, we all turn to the arts and to our family, and we for comfort. We rely on the musicians and the poets and the writers and the painters to feel good, to help us weather this emotional storm. And I think much like politics, where that places the most importance is at the tiniest, most local level. I think if our society has moved to a point where there's a grand fiction that there is a professional class of musicians, where there's like an us versus them, where most people think, well, I'm not a musician. Those are musicians, and that's what it looks like. And normal people don't make music. And I'm delighting in the fact that I can go stand on Johnny's driveway and 2 bass players can play old standards and these weird proto-Iron Maiden compositions for a cul-de-sac of neighbors, and being one of the most fulfilling concerts I've given in recent memory. Because they all come out and they're all sitting on their curb or on their porches, and they're all so thankful. And it's the most genuine applause and appreciation for a performance that I think I've had in quite some time. So I think playing and thinking, artistically, politically, food-wise, economically, on a very local level is how we're going to get through this thing. Because I don't think this thing's going to end anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree.
So the bright side is that we as people can get together personally as possible.
Yeah.
By still being responsible about not spreading this thing any further than we have to.
Part of this question I'm going to pose to you is rhetorical, but it's also just making sure that we cover the space. For the artists, the jazz community, which I just want to preface this with, I've been through a lot of walks of life. I've been through a lot of professions. I've met a lot of people, and I've never met a finer group of people than jazz musicians, for the fact that your reverence and adherence to such a high art, being humble, being just nice people, and the reason why I'm doing this is to hopefully get people out there to support jazz when it's not live. And how would that happen? How would somebody out there be able to support you guys during this time?
That is a great question. I think, looking up people by their social media, most jazz musicians I know have some kind of social media going on. And just 5 minutes of research, if there's someone, if the thought comes to you that jazz is part of your world, and if someone's listening to your show, I'm pretty sure it is. So they've invested at some point in time in going out and seeing live music. And if the thought pops into your head that, oh, I miss seeing this person at this venue, then I urge you to look that person up online. Find them on their Facebook, their website, their Instagram, whatever social media it is they use. a small amount of digging will probably come up with a Venmo or a PayPal address, and just throw them some bread. Donate to them like you would have that night that you went out. And while you're at it, do the same for the venue that you would have gone to. Because that's what's going to help keep us afloat in this time. I'll be brutally honest. My personal economy is my adjunct job at KU is 25% of my income. The rest of it's through life form. So, is taking a drastic hit. And most of jazz musicians I know are in a very similar boat. So that reaching out then, us playing, Johnny and I playing last Sunday and Facebook live streaming it. A lot of people donated, and it was really heartwarming. I was very thankful, and I knew everyone that did. They were all good friends. And I was like, oh man, thank you so much. It's so appreciative. It put really the money that came in. I put a week's worth of groceries in my fridge. It's that real. So, when the thought comes in your head to, if you're missing a particular musician, reach out and help them out. Because, man, I know a lot of guys that can use it.
Yeah. Well, I got one more question for you, and it's this. We're going to get back to live music. We're going to get back to what we knew before with being in an audience. What revelations or what realizations do you hope both musician and audience member gets from this time away from the live music?
Just how special it is. Most jazz musicians, none of it is for the money, because there is none, are barely enough to make a living, to squeak by, plus afford a home or a family. They're all doing it. You can guarantee that if you see someone on stage and they're playing jazz, they're doing it because they love it and because they need to do it, because they can't think of anything else they'd rather do. So, and those that do this, whether we're lucky enough to do it for a living or it's just a vocation, it's something you just enjoy, that's part of our lives. There is nothing in the world that feels as other people, like in the same room. There's something that happens in the molecules in the air between us, that when you're hitting together, when the vibe is there, when you're all playing for each other, when you're serving the music and the melody and the song, it's completely transcendent, and it's impossible to do by yourself, and it's impossible to do online or over the phone or through the television. It only exists in that space. And when it's that good, as an audience member and as a lifelong fan of music, you feel it there too. My biggest drag about my job is I don't get to go see all the music I want to see because I'm playing it myself. That's a very small complaint, I think, because I'm lucky enough to be able to have this feeling. And those of us that are fans of the music, that the only way to get it is to go see live music. It doesn't exist anywhere else. And that moment in time is over. It happens, and it's special, and it's gone. And even if you try to record it and film it, capture it, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
You gotta be in the room. You gotta feel the air change. You gotta feel the molecules get excited between you and the band and your friends and your neighbors. That's art.
Yeah.
That's light. And that's what we're going to need coming out of this. Getting through something like this is one thing. Coming out of it, completely different thing.
Yeah.
And we're going to have those things, just as a culture and as a species, to come out of this without being completely freaked out.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Paris, Kansas City, and spots all over the globe, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Jeff for his time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Come with me. Thank you.
Neon Jazz.